and welcome back to a new episode of the Royal Watcher podcast. I'm Saad, the founder of the Royal Watcher, and I'm joined today by Sam.
Hello.
Sam, you've been having quite an exciting week. You were in Buckingham Palace to see the opening of the Edwardians Age of Elegance exhibition held by the Royal Collection.
Yes, it was quite a delight to go and see on a cold but sunny morning on a Thursday in London. I was very honoured that the Royal Collection invited us, and yeah, I had a wonderful time.
Yes, I think first off, we should start by thanking the Royal Collection for inviting us to attend the press preview because that is just really special. And I
Mm.
actually haven't told you this, but after this exhibition, I was looking through my emails and turned out they'd sent the invite a month ago, and it was in my spam folder,
Oh,
which I hadn't seen. So thank God
mm.
to send a follow-up email, or we would not have.
Yeah. Always check your
Yeah,
spam,
so
people.
yes, that's a lesson for everyone. I think we knew that there were going to be a couple of jewels in this exhibit, but we were surprised to see so many of kind of the most prominent jewels in the Royal Collection.
I mean, yeah, I won't do it, but I could publish our WhatsApp conversation. I was just sort of, I was just like sad. They're showing everything.
Yeah. I know it was quite a surprise and really exciting for my end as well to see how well they've done it.
Yeah, it was a wonderfully curated collection. A big thanks to Catherine Jones, the curator of the exhibition. She was actually very kind and took 5 minutes to have a chat with me at the end, and she's done an absolutely wonderful job. And she was very accommodating in our chat.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we can move on to the next slide and give a bit of an overview about the exhibition. So it explores the two monarchs that reigned during the Edwardian age, King Edward VII and Queen Alexandra, and King George V and Queen Mary. And from their family lives to their personal collecting and their glittering social circles and spectacular royal events that they held, this exhibition really covers the material culture of that entire era, which was really kind of the last uh, bit before everything changed after the First World War. So this was really the height of decadence and glamour, and it hasn't really been the same ever since.
Yeah, and you could definitely see it in the pieces that have been curated for this exhibition. I mean, the picture we're looking at now is the collection of Winterhalter portraits and Tuxen, was it?
Yes,
Tuxen portraits. I mean, they're about 10 foot tall. Everyone's covered in jewels. They're just absolutely magnificent. There's a couple of Philip de Laszlo paintings. Um,
there's a John Singer Sargent, which is the Duchess of Connaught. For those who are watching on YouTube and on the other platforms, you can see that. And he was a very famous American painter. And among kind of the objects, it's pieces by Fabergé, Frederick Leighton, William Morris, and so really the topmost kind of craftsmen of the day who created um, all these things for the royal couples.
mm.
And I think we can move on to an overview of the jewel set you saw yesterday, which I think one of the highlights was Queen Alexandra's Kokoshnik tiara, which was a gift to her from Ladies of Society on her silver anniversary in 1888. And it's quite a special piece, especially because it was just recently worn by Queen Camilla in December, so not that long ago.
No, no, and hasn't faded from public memory at all. And as we said in the beginning, we knew there were going to be some jewels, but we didn't realize there were going to be such important jewels. So you can imagine my surprise. As you enter the exhibition, you go through the objects initially, and then you get to the gallery at the back, turn left, and that's when I almost fainted because that's where the Kokoshnik was.
Yeah, and how is it in real life? Is it as massive as it seems in the pictures, or is it different?
Do you know, strangely, it is quite small, but that might just be because of the way it's displayed. However, if you can see from the pictures on the left, it's worn in a more open sort of sunray style. I mean, maybe I like my jewels a little bit bigger, but it was quite small, but nevertheless imposing. And the size of the diamonds and the magnificence of the quality in no way diminishes it So it's still an absolutely spectacular jewel.
Yes, I think it is really one of the most magnificent pieces in the British Royal collection.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the size of the stones, one of those stones is the average size of an engagement ring. So you can imagine, how many stones there are in that tiara. It's quite impressive.
Definitely. And then we can move on to another piece from Queen Alexandra in the next slide, which is the Dagmar necklace that she received as a wedding gift from the King of Denmark. And this is quite a controversial piece in the sense that people aren't big fans of it. It is very Victorian, and it must be quite difficult to wear because it's was only worn a few times by the late Queen in the 50s and hasn't really been seen since.
Yeah, it's a shame. And I was speaking to Catherine Jones, the curator, about this piece. There's always this rumor that Queen Alexandra came with a big trousseau, but actually, the Danish royals were not as well off as their European counterparts. So this jewel, it was the best that her father could give her. And it's a complicated piece, you would say, but it's very, there's the rumor that it's got a piece of the True Cross in it, or isn't it a lock of hair from King Canute, who, if anyone who studied history knows, was a Viking king of England. So it is a very meaningful gift that was given to Alexandra from her Danish relatives to for her to take with her into her new life within the British royal family.
Yes, it's I think for the time being it must have been kind of quite special that they were able to muster up kind of enough funds because if as you both know the collection of Queen Alexandra's mother was quite limited, and if it hadn't been for the Swedish princesses marrying into the family, shout out to our friend Jacob who will be
Hmm.
listening, they would not have much of a jewelry collection at all. So this is really impressive for the fact that the Danish had nothing. And I mean, when the her sister married the Tsar of Russia, they famously didn't go to the wedding because they couldn't afford to dress themselves and have enough jewels to kind of outfit themselves for the Russian court. So you can
Exactly.
imagine they were, and financially they weren't as well off and didn't have the collection that you would expect of a royal family.
No, so I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still obviously covered in diamonds and pearls and intricate details, but it's clearly more of a sentimental piece as opposed to a an expensive piece that you would send.
Yes, I think it is one of those pieces that we might not see worn ever again. It is much more of a museum piece, especially because
Mm.
I think the flags and the pendants, it just gets too complicated probably, and it'd be looking messy when it's been worn in real life.
Yes, and as we know, necklaces seem to be out of fashion at the moment. So yeah, I think this is definitely going to
Yes,
be a museum piece going forward.
definitely. And then we can move on to a more familiar piece, which is Queen Alexandra's wedding necklace, and that she received as a wedding gift from the Prince of Wales when they got married. And this is quite another very versatile piece. The pendants come off. Believe she also used the elements as brooches individually. And then this was a lifelong favorite of the Queen Mother, and then it was most recently worn by the Princess of Wales for a Dutch state banquet with the most unfortunate dress. But luckily, we don't need to focus on that
We
today.
don't talk about that. And also a missing drop pendant, I've just noticed.
Oh yeah, no, I think that is tucked
I
behind.
think it's tucked
Um,
behind, yeah. No. No, that was another
but
beautiful piece. That was positioned right underneath the kokoshnik, so that was a wonderful, wonderful piece to view.
definitely. And this is really, I think, one of the most like timeless. It's a very Victorian piece. This sort of having the stones surrounded by diamonds with swags, but it is really lovely classic, and I hope that it is worn again because it is
Mm.
stunning. And then from Queen Alexandra, we can move on to Queen Mary's jewels in the next slide, which would kind of highlighted by the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara that she received as a wedding gift from the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland, obviously. And that is a piece that has been worn by Queen Camilla as well twice in recent years.
I was actually quite surprised to see that Queen Mary's jewels were incorporated into this exhibition because of obviously as it's named the Edwardians, you would have thought they would have just focused on Edward and Alexandra, but actually, Queen Mary was an Edwardian. or more of a Victorian
Yes.
actually. But she was the she was the Duchess of York, and then she was the Princess of Wales. So it was, she did live a lot of her life within the Edwardian period. So it does make sense.
And a lot of her jewels were very Edwardian, and we'll see with a few pieces later on that not all of them were really created in the Edwardian era, but the style was so prominent that they are included in this exhibit.
Mm,
But this is one of those pieces that's actually technically it's Victorian because it's from 1893.
yeah,
But this is again, this is probably my favorite tiara ever. It's the most like timeless royal piece, and it was just iconic when the late Queen wore it. And I remember seeing it at Buckingham Palace on the day she died. So that is a
yeah.
memory that will stay with me
Well,
forever.
I suppose it's the most synonymous just because it was on the banknotes. It was on British
Yeah,
banknotes and colonial banknotes, and then in the
it's
Commonwealth.
still on the Canadian coins that I see. So,
Yeah.
and this is one I'm not sure if you had the time to see, but the shadows of this actually creates girls linking arms. So that is a very kind of unique fact about this jewel.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there you go. You learn something new every day.
Yeah, and then we can move on to the next jewel of Queen Mary, which is actually uh, underneath it. It's a collection of jewels in the next slide. And the highlight of that was the Love Trophy choker, which hasn't been worn in over a century, but it was something that we already knew was going to be an exhibit. And it's a piece that people have been wanting to reappear for quite long. So it's lovely to see it being exhibited, and hopefully it may be worn at some point in the future, though I think
Well,
that is
yeah,
quite unlikely.
I do remember speaking to Catherine Jones, and she did say that it's an incredibly delicate piece. I wouldn't be surprised, I would assume that was platinum. It's very finely woven. It's probably extremely delicate. I don't think it would be worn. It would be lovely if it was worn. Um,
Yeah.
but I doubt it.
I mean, it was in the collection of someone like Queen Maxima. She'd have a gown designed for her, and she.
I must say, it's so funny. It's just to look at Queen Mary's neck, it looks enormous on her neck. It's not that big in
Yeah.
real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would,
I was slightly underwhelmed seeing it. Like I expected it to be larger in size than
yeah,
it does
yeah,
seem.
just I don't know. I would say it was like a large bracelet size, but I don't know, maybe
Oh,
she had a very, very small neck.
that is
Or
actually one of the things, a bit of a side note that I've noticed about the British jewels, and especially the necklaces worn by the late Queen. They were so much smaller than I'd expected. Like the
mm,
size of them, the circumference, it was tiny. I mean, she
yeah.
probably had a small neck. They appear massive in the photographs, but in real life, not as big.
Yeah, interesting.
And then another notable piece was the diamond stomacher of Queen Mary, and this was a piece that was actually created in 1920, so a couple of years after the Edwardian era. But it is such an Edwardian piece that they had to include in this exhibit.
Yeah, I mean, I mistakenly thought it was Queen Victoria's. Um, but yeah, no, it's definitely with the swag and the floral design, it's very Edwardian in its design, but it's definitely a Queen Mary's piece because I mean, Queen Elizabeth only wore it the once just because it is quite imposing, and stomachers, went out of fashion in the 1910s, so
They were barely in fashion in the 1910s either, so Queen Mary was really just holding on.
yeah.
Yeah, it is quite a striking piece, and I find it interesting that it's exhibited in three separate pieces. And maybe, I mean, Queen Camilla loves a massive brooch, so I think this is one that she can
Yeah.
definitely.
It could definitely hold together a garter sash, put it that way.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and we've already seen her wear one of the Grapple stomachers, so
Mm.
this will be a nice surprise. And then we had two brooches from Queen Mary. One that was given by the women of Hampshire. That I thought was a very kind of random choice because she was given much more impressive gifts, wedding gifts, and this is rather random to include in this
Yeah,
exhibition.
I didn't even know what it was until I read the note at the bottom. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was worn like once or twice every year by the late Queen, and then it doesn't really have any other significance. And
Other than
then
being
we
very
saw
pretty.
yes, it is lovely. And then the scroll Cambridge Emerald brooch. And that was also, I think, a bit random as well, because like
I think it's because
There's
we're so used to seeing, pictures of Queen Mary in the entire Delhi Durbar suite. It's like one
oh,
random brooch was a
definitely.
bit like, can we not get the necklace? Can we not get the other brooches, the earrings, Just
And exactly, but I do have a feeling that the fact it's not included and these jewels will be in this exhibition until November means we might get an appearance of the Cambridge Emerald suite with the
Ooh.
Vladimir, which is also not included, at some point within the next few months.
Ooh, touch wood.
So maybe that's some foreshadowing. I mean, Queen Camilla had every opportunity. Go read my op-ed on what
Yep.
should I wear a star in Italy. But I mean, maybe there's something coming up which we're not too sure about, and there'll
Yep.
be some exciting stuff. And then we can move on from here to the most exciting jewel of all. The next slide.
I nearly fell over. I nearly collapsed when I saw this. Because the thing is, it's not next. So people, if you are attending this exhibition, you will go in first. You will go into the green room, which is filled with the objects, a couple of costumes, and a lot of paintings. And then naturally, you're supposed to go into the room at the back where the Kokoshnik is and the Girls of Great Britain. Me being me, I veered to the left, went through one room which was full of manuscripts, then another bit that was full of Egyptian pieces, and then you sort of peep your head round the corner, and there is one of the most stunning tiaras that was ever created for the British royal family, just tucked in the corner.
Wow, it's in that little vestibule between the
It
two
is.
big
They did
halls.
that. They did the same thing to me with the Vladimir when I went to the the Russian exhibition they did. The Vladimir was just like off to the left in the little alcove.
Yeah,
So this must be a thing. They're just, they just like to spring these amazing tiaras on me, but they're just like out of the way.
I'm probably best for security reasons.
Probably, yeah.
But no, it is the most impressive piece, and I mean, I think it's really the big gun of the Bergerac collection. It's akin to the Braganza and the Stuart Tiara, because of the massive size of it.
Yeah, it's just the fact that it's hardly ever been worn. So to see it in the flesh, it was just like, "Oh, I know you. I've studied you intensely."
I know it's very impressive.
I was so impressed, and obviously, and thank because it was so out of the way. It was just so a lot easier to sort of get up close to it, and study the detailing in the piece, which is it's phenomenal. It's composed of pave set diamonds, lots of I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but lyres, which are like ancient Greek symbols, and they're all connected with festoons, and there's rose elements. And then you don't realize that it's actually a closed coronet, so it goes all the way around and it's all interconnected. So I had and because I'm 5'9" and got on my tiptoes, was able to film the back of it as well, which is just it was amazing.
Oh, definitely. So, did it appear like it could open? Because in when Queen Camilla wore it, 20 years ago now, it looked
20 years
much
ago.
more open.
I mean, well, because Queen Mary was so versatile with her jewels, the picture in the center, you can see that the central element was actually originally supposed to accommodate the Cullinan diamonds. As you can see there, she's
Yes.
got Cullinan 3 and Cullinan 4. And then the piece also incorporated her Cambridge emeralds before she put them into the Vladimir tiara. So
Yeah.
she designed her jewelry to be versatile. I wouldn't be surprised if there were screw mechanisms at the back where you could unscrew it and wear it more open, as we can see in Queen Camilla's on the right. They
Yeah.
were very ingenious when they used to make tiaras back in the day. It was a multi-purpose piece.
And this is one that I really want Queen Camilla to wear. Would not if not the big Cullinan, at least one of the main square one. I believe that's Cullinan 3,
Mm,
because that would be such an impressive piece. I
that
mean,
is
it's already
amazing.
impressive, but that would just make it even more over the top.
Very much so. But yeah, that was a definite highlight. I took a lot of videos of that piece.
You were saying something that the central element seemed older than the rest of the frame.
It is, just with my little jeweler's eye, just because I know that obviously this piece was made for the 1911 Delhi Durbar, and by that time platinum had become more mainstream in the jewelry industry. And if you look at the other elements of the tiara, you can see that it's all pave set, or that means when the stone is set into the metal. The central element is it looks older because it's like silver backed, which means like the diamond's been set in silver and the silver surrounds the diamond, because they used to use silver before they used platinum, and that gives it more of a white color to the diamond. So that was just something I noticed, and it's an older way of setting things. So it's just to notice that, and then to compare it to the sort of more modern platinum settings of the rest of the tiara. It's just something I noticed. That's what happens when you've been in a trade for 20 years. You're like, that's off.
Oh
Doesn't
yeah.
doesn't detract from the piece at all. It's just something I noticed.
Oh, no, it is very interesting that there were who knows how many additional elements Queen Mary had for this,
Well,
because I think we've saw
my
quite
best
a
guess would be that was a brooch, some old Victorian
yeah,
brooch. She went, "Oh, I'm not using this. Put that in."
exactly. So good for Queen Mary.
Mm.
And then I think we move on to the next slide, which has a look at some of the other objects on display, including this Fabergé cigarette case with a serpent that's quite kind of well known now because
Oh
it was
yeah,
given as a gift from Mrs. Keppel to King Edward VII, and Mrs. Keppel was his mistress, who's also, I believe, the great grandmother of Queen Camilla.
yeah, that old famous story. It's quite funny. Whenever I go to exhibitions at Buckingham Palace, they always have this on display. I'm like, oh, there it is again.
Yeah, it's one of those pieces where they love to bring it out.
But don't get me wrong, I'm sounding very dismissive. It's an absolutely beautiful piece. It's made by Fabergé. It's got the beautiful royal blue guilloche enamel. The snake is made out of diamonds, and the snake is biting its own tail, which is a symbol of everlasting love. It is a very beautiful piece, but yeah, I've seen enough of it.
Yeah, there were quite a few stunning pieces, but I think that is the most standout. And then we can go move on to the next slide, which has a look at some of the costumes and uh, paintings on display. Most notably, Queen Alexandra's coronation gown, which was one of those pieces that I've actually really studied about because it was um, very complicated to create it. It was the fabric was all woven in India,
Hmm.
and then she corresponded with the viceroy at the time, Lady Curzon, and it was stitched by Worth in Paris. So trying to transport all the fabric, the designs, the fabric between London, New Delhi, I believe it was Calcutta at the time, Calcutta and Paris, and so it was quite complicated to get it to London in time.
It was, and they say it's very, very fragile. I was reading today that the conservators of this exhibition took them 100 hours to put it together, so it must be incredibly delicate.
Oh, definitely. But I must say, if you compare it to I don't know if you've ever seen that peacock dress that Lady Curzon wore for the Delhi Durbar.
I think I have,
That's
yeah.
one of the most, so that was kind of as a corresponding dress made at the same time because the Delhi Durbar celebrated the coronation of Edward and Alexandra.
Mm.
So what the viceroy made for herself was much more striking than this coronation gown.
It's all right. They were never going to be pictured next to each other, so it's fine.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it looks much more impressive in the photographs or in the paintings. Maybe the
Yeah,
colors
because
faded a bit.
I was always told it was, gold, a cloth of gold. Maybe it's faded, I don't know, or maybe I just don't know what cloth of gold really looks like. But it was more of like a grayish silver.
Yeah, it is very striking, but I mean, I can imagine Queen Alexandra being loaded with gems on the day. That would have probably made it much
Yeah,
nicer sight
yeah. I
again
mean,
itself.
me and a couple of other people at the exhibition, where we were all like, "Oh, look how small her waist is." Oh,
Yes, and I'm not sure, is that Queen Alexandra's coronation robe beside her, or was it the king's?
I wasn't paying attention. I was taking videos. Sorry.
Or for people who go visit, that's something for you to find
Yeah,
out.
there you go. There you go. That's homework for everyone.
Yes, and then we move on to the next slide, which has a look at the other gallery and one of Queen Alexandra's most notable costumes, which came from a costume ball that they attended in 1871 when she dressed as Mary Queen of Scots. And
Yes.
then more kind of notable things behind that are two paintings by Tuxen. One in the corner on the left there you can see is the famous kind of the royal family at Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee, and it's all her children, in-laws, and grandchildren, and their spouses, and everyone's basically related to everyone. And this was actually something that she kind of made as a copycat after the Danish royal family had commissioned a similar portrait. So she was a bit
Yes.
jealous of that and decided to make her
So
own.
it was the grandmother of Europe versus the father-in-law of Europe. Both had those paintings made.
A bit of overlap in between some of the
Yeah.
same. And then we also see one of Queen Victoria's, I believe this was her Diamond Jubilee and the garden party she had at Buckingham Palace. And it was interesting that in those days, the royals used to travel through the garden in carriages. And so there's no handshaking that we see these days. There's She just waved. And you have to know that these were just like the creme of British society. So we're all titled people, but they were all acting like,
Yes.
yes. Sam, now this is a time for your review. What did you think of the exhibit overall, especially compared to other exhibitions you've attended at the King's Gallery or in London in the past few years?
It was an absolutely wonderful exhibition. I mean, whenever you go to the King's Gallery, you're getting, the creme de la creme of curations, of, attention to detail. They always pick the best pieces to display to the public. Um, the the standard of the objects are obviously the highest that you can get. And like I say, Catherine Jones, who was the curator, was very kind. Took 5 minutes out to have a quick chat with me. She said that this exhibition was actually planned in 2021, but due obviously to COVID, they had to keep delaying it. So this has been years in the making, and you can tell a lot of hard work as an expertise has gone into this. So it was absolutely fabulous. I went in there with the expectation of seeing like the Dagmar necklace and the Kokoshnik. I did not expect to see all the other brilliant jewels that were on display. Um, and also the portraiture, I also didn't expect to see. Um, one thing I did like was the inclusion of the Philip de Laszlo portrait of Princess Alice, who was Prince Philip's mother's, because sometimes she's often overlooked by the royal collection. But it was lovely to see her included because she was an Edwardian. But it was amazing, and I encourage people to go and see it. It's on till November. You've got no excuse. Um, and they were
And if
very
you visit the collection once, they stamp your ticket and you can visit it as many times as you want and within a year.
exactly.
So
I think an adult ticket is £19. You get that stamped, and you give I think it's gift aid, and then it's a year-long pass, and you can go in as many times as you want.
it's the perfect run. And at this point, you can also go for next year's exhibition as well.
Exactly.
And I think one of the things you said about the paintings that makes it really special is that these are the paintings that hang in the staterooms of Buckingham Palace. So those walls must be empty right now, and I think that is an indication of the renovations that are going on there. So
So yeah,
the
you'd get a
reason
chance to see stuff that you'd never get to see because it would be in the staterooms at Buckingham Palace. So go and have a look while you can.
definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your